I mean, there are rules with music production, but like when you're dealing with stuff that's like, I think when you go outside of the realm of working with all organic instruments and, you know, you're working with like sampling or synthesizers or beats and things like that, it's like, I feel like the rules are out the window because like this can really sound like anything that you want it to. And, you know, I don't know, there's a more of a elastic nature to like what the mix should be. And I think that's how like you get original sounds and you get like your own sound. I find that so many producers now really lack in having sound because everybody's using the same fucking sample packs and the same fucking plugins. And it's it's like, you know, it's like how every fucking model looks the same. So they go to the same three plastic surgeons. It's like it's the same shit. We're all using the same fucking things.
And it's all pre-processed and pre-EQ'd, so it's going to sound perfect, industry standard when you put it in there. But I think that strips away from what it originally would have been if it was from a sample or whatever. You know what I mean? I try to see, do I have a sound to my beats? I think you could maybe be like, that might be a Moemaw beat, because I kind of do things to my drums every time to give it a fucking like sloppy, dusty hit.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Just fucking pitching shit way down and stacking them. If you pitch it down and then the punch goes away, I'll just add another kick way underneath it to accentuate the punch. And,
I'm really big in like layering drum sounds. I never find like, oh, there's like, that's the one kick sound and the one snare sound I'm going to use. That never happens.
Right.
I mean, I like to always layer stuff. And I also like to sometimes like stagger those layers too, because it gives like a weird dynamic, you know, where like instead of like a boom, 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 like if you have only one of those kicks doing that extra little hit, it gives it like that extra bounce, which is really cool. Just like those percussive elements help make it sound a little bit more human, which is something that I think that like I've always tried to do with my music, regardless of whatever genre I'm producing that day. Because I mean, I grew up like listening to rock and listening to, you know, humans playing music. But the weird thing that like when I like got into like making beats, you know, that was like probably like, you know, I like heard some like, you know, early Timbaland shit that was like real weird and groovy, and I was like, that's interesting, you know? And that was like the kind of stuff that made me like just interested in it, but was probably way more like, you know, listening to shit like The Prodigy too, which is like at the same time on the opposite end of the spectrum, and just like putting all that together in my brain. I don't know, being like a child of the 90s was wild because it was so much, I felt like it was a lot more normal to listen to like 1,000 different types of music. It was all like pumped through like, you know, MTV and shit like that. And now I feel like everything's just like so divided, but also like I don't really talk to like 15-year-olds, so I have no idea what their interests are, how they're digesting music. Maybe it's the same.
I don't know, I'm out of the loop as far as all that, man. Also for sure, it seems like a lot of stuff is coming back as it always did. I remember like us wearing like, you know, Led Zeppelin shirts and Grateful Dead shirts when we were in like junior high, and my parents would be like, we used to listen to all that stuff, you know what I mean? And like, they didn't think it was that cool because they already listened to it. But now I see kids with fucking, you know, Nirvana shirts on and all the old shit, and it's like, we're like, or even like shit that was corny to me, they'll be wearing, and I'm like, oh, you guys think that's cool now? I remember when it was being beaten into our heads, you know what I mean? And it was not cool, but it was, you know, I guess that's dope to me. That's coming back, man.
Yeah, I think it's just like, if you over time, like as I've gotten older and more humble, I suppose, like if you have an interest in whatever it is, as long as it's not like, you know, some weirdo stuff that's like, you know, actually socially problematic, you know what I mean? Like if you just like music that I think is bad or whatever, like if you're passionate about it, at least you have something that makes you fucking happy.
Absolutely, man.
You know,
I agree on that for
and
sure.
like it's like, you know, I think about it like food, like whatever the fuck your taste is, you know what I mean? Like, oh, like you fuck with that on your sandwiches, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, it ain't for me, but if it's for you, I mean, we all got to eat. We all need to find pleasure in art somehow.
Yeah, I can't get into the best pizza argument because it's just whatever fucking pizza tastes good to you. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not. That shit is trash. I can't do that. That's if you like it, then it's good. It's your favorite. So
Yeah.
Who cares, man?
Yeah.
If you're comparing it to like what's the best pizza around here that's like New York pizza, which is the stand, then I could get into the argument like this one is more like your standard pizza. You know what I mean? Which that's just, I feel the same way with music. That's why I don't get into the top whatever rappers of all time, because what are we talking about? Are we talking about the impact they've had on society, which I think is really important? Are we talking about how many records they sold? Are we talking about if they made $1 billion? Are we talking about if they're the best freestylers, the best lyricists, the best writers, the coolest style altogether? Like there's too many variables for me to go into like who's the best rapper. It's just kind of like more like, this is who I think is the best in this category. Here's who I think is the best in this category. And here's my favorite. And I don't give a fuck what you say about that because it's my favorite for whatever reason that I want it to be. You know what I mean?
I hate the idea of favorites, and I understand it, but my brain just doesn't work like that. Probably for a similar reason to you. There are just too many fucking variables
For sure.
when it comes to anything. And it always like bums me out. I see this a lot nowadays where people will talk about like, oh, I saw the new Alien movie. It wasn't as good as the old ones, but it was all right.
Yeah.
Or I listened to that new fucking, I don't know, whatever artist's album. Like, wasn't as good as their last stuff, but it was all right. It's like, why do you have to like compare every single thing that you interact with like something that was better instead of just being like, hey, that was dope. That was dope. Like every slice of pizza you eat, are you going to be like, wasn't as good as the last pizza I had? Like, just enjoy what you have in the moment. Like everything seems so like it's not so like final, like not the end. Like everything isn't a competition. Everything doesn't have to be better than the last thing that you fucking engaged with. You know,
right?
You know, whenever you're like making music, are you like, shit, this wasn't as good as the last song I made? Let me fucking hang it up.
I want every song to be better than the last one. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, you want it, but I mean, like,
shit. I hope it's better than
but
the
like
last
what?
shit.
But that's even like you get back into that nuanced conversation. Like, what makes a song good or better? Like, there's not just one thing. It's like, oh, you know, maybe like the production on this one wasn't as like detailed as this last track, but like I really like my lyrics on this song.
Yeah,
you know, or I like the message, or like, damn, the hook is really good. Like, what makes something good?
Right.
And it's always something different.
Yeah. It could be good in other people's eyes because it's catchy and it hooks them in. Or some people would be like, yeah, I like the more like intricate, like just straight bars or whatever, just for whatever reason. And some of my stuff does better, and I don't know why, than others. And yeah, I don't know.
Well, that's the other
taste.
That's the other thing too. I had a really interesting epiphany some time ago when, you know, you play a lot of shows and you sometimes will take shows that aren't on lineups that you feel like maybe you really fit on, but you're like, whatever, a gig's a gig. And maybe you feel like you don't fit on that gig because like the other artists on it are a little bit different of a style than you, but then you end up finding that like the people in that audience seem to be fucking with you more than the people that you feel is your actual audience. And you're like, shit, do I even know my audience?
My audience, yeah, exactly. My favorite shows to do are the mixed genre shows. You know what I mean? Like up at the Shred Shed with Metal Mary. Like, she's always like, I don't know, you know, I don't know, you know, you want to play with these bands or whatever? And I'm like, hell yeah, because then I'm going to have a totally different audience that's going to find out about me, and they're probably going to buy merch. Everybody else already has the merch and shit. You know what I mean? So I love it. I'll play with whoever. I almost prefer that, especially in the hip hop scene here. Bigger crowds, unless I'm opening up for somebody that's very well established or whatever. I seem to perform for bigger crowds at mixed genre shows.
Definitely.
I'm definitely not shy about that. I'll jump on anything. You know what I mean? As long as I can do what I want to do, you know?
Yeah.
Or if they have a suggestion, like let's maybe our bassist can come up and play with you, I'll do that too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We recording?
Oh yeah, we're recording.
I figured.
Yeah, we're cooking.
Yeah, that was nice, soft. There was no intro. We just sat down and started talking.
Hey, if you don't know, now you know. Moemaw Naedon's in the building. Make some noise.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate y'all.
The last time you were on the show, I meant to look it up, but it was more years ago than probably either of us care to admit. But with that time, comes a lot of knowledge and experience and different things, different stories to tell, things happen, and the one thing that I think where we can kind of start this is actually just piggybacking off of where we were just talking about, like, hey, playing mixed genre shows and maybe feeling like there's more of a market there in some ways than like within the actual hip hop community in Pittsburgh. And what I would like to ask you, as somebody who is still like a very active hip hop artist in the city, what the fuck happened?
Oh, yeah.
To like the Pittsburgh hip hop scene? Because like I've always been somebody that was kind of on like the periphery of it. You know what I mean? Like I did a lot more hip hop a long time ago, more like it's probably been close to a decade since I've actually been actively on stage doing this stuff, but I'm still like adjacent to it in a lot of ways. And I talk to people, I have artists that come on the show, but as a whole, I still try to look for things to do. I try to look for shows to go to when I don't have shit going on. And it's always like rock shows or indie shows or this or that. Like what fucking happened? And I feel like so many people that I know that were in that scene, you might be one of the only people I know that's still even like trying to do something, unless I'm like sleeping on somebody else. But like, what happened?
Well, yeah. So, I'm kind of befuddled myself about it. And I just kind of realized how desolate, at least what I'm able to see. I don't know if there's some secret shit happening that I don't know about, but I doubt it, because I do know a lot of like younger producers and shit. And you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know, but for example, my homie and myself were thinking about bringing in a pretty well-established East Coast rapper who I've worked with, and he wanted to come through, and my homie knows him a little bit more, and he was like, he's not from here, he's originally from Connecticut, and he was like, yo, think about bringing so-and-so in, like, do you know any venues and like any ideas? And I'm like, well, let me think about it. And he's like, well, you how do you not have all the answers right away? Like, how are you drawing a blank? And I'm like, well, I'm trying to think of like a venue that is the scene there is like underground hip hop scene. Like you might get some people coming there anyway to like see some hip hop, and they'll at least even know who the artist is we're talking about, and they'll cooperate in promoting it, and they'll be excited that he was trying to come through. And I couldn't think of anywhere. I could not think of one venue. I think there's venues that I work with and I love them. They're great. But as far as like that goes, it's just like, man, I don't know of any like, hip hop nights that happen where like, rappers show up and, or a club where they could come. Like I hate to just keep echoing this, but since the Shadow Lounge was gone,
Sure.
like we don't have that anymore here, as far as I know. Maybe if anybody out there, like, if there is something, just let me know, please. But I know there's like places like the Gold Mark where that's about the closest thing I can think of, because they have like hip hop DJs there and stuff. But it's not actually really like a performance space where I could bring in an established act and be like, here's where we're playing. There's not like really a stage there. I've rapped there before and it's always dope. Shout out Gold Mark for letting me and my people perform there and such. But I'm like, damn, I thought of a couple places and I did hit them up, and we'll probably end up using them, and thanks for them for working with me. But like now it's like, all right, who do we get as an opener besides myself and a couple DJs we were thinking of? And I'm like, damn, who's even rapping that's like in that vein right now?
Yeah.
And I thought of a couple people that they do that, you know what I mean? I know there's some of you out there, but I only could think of like fucking 3.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm like, damn. So what the hell did happen? I'm not really sure. I mean, an important hub you know, isn't there anymore. We don't really have the hub. There's like some younger kids doing like more trap stuff that's like a little out of my realm. I'm not opposed to working with them, but a lot of the newer artists, when I've seen them perform, it's like they're rapping on their vocal tracks, and their stage presence isn't really there. The beats are thin. They're not really engaging with the crowd the way they're supposed to. And
well, I mean,
as far as a performance, I'm like, I just don't relate to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's almost, I feel like, you know, I feel like hip hop culture in Pittsburgh, it was always there. You know what I mean? Mailman, Tuffy Tough, stuff from way back in the day. There was a culture and a foundation, absolutely. But it was never, it never had kind of its like own thing that was culturally impactful, really. We had artists that made it really big, and we had a lot of artists make really great stuff and leave a great mark in Pittsburgh, but it's kind of hard to hold it like a hip hop scene in Pittsburgh when there was the foundation. Like it was all we were always piggybacking off like what New York was doing at the time, and then it was like seemed like everybody was trying to do what the down south people were doing after a while, and then the trap stuff came, and then started doing that. It was almost like we never had like a reference point.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So when we lose the few people that, or a lot of the acts and crews, you know what I mean? As far as like the boom bap type shit that I'm into, and the guy we're trying to bring in, like the easy way to say it is everybody got old. Yeah. And they had kids, and they aren't trying to fucking do this shit anymore. You know what I mean? And it's like, you know, wasn't a lot of people that there was. I don't want anybody to be like commenting like, oh, he's forgetting about so and so. I'm not saying there hasn't been artists that made it huge in Pittsburgh and always represented Pittsburgh, and I love them for that, and that's very important. But as far as like the amount of people in the city, it's not a very big city population wise anyway, and there's not enough people that are into that type of the underground hip hop that would be in another city where we could bring in this artist, give him what he wants, and the venue would probably pay us to bring him in instead of us paying the venue to rent the space.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I can't like, so that's, I mean, I would have to like rent the space off a venue, and that's a couple $100. We got to pay him. It starts adding up, and then it's like, all right, well, we got to get like, we got to get 70 people in here to break even. I've seen way bigger acts come in that are like New York hip hop legendary dudes come to Mr. Smalls, and like 40 people are there.
Oh yeah.
And it's just like, what? You know, so that's my answer to that. I'm not, I think there's I think there's there's more things working against that small of a community.
Yeah. Well,
you know what I mean? There is working for it.
Yeah. It doesn't really feel like there's been like a space that the community feels comfortable in supporting, really. You know what I mean? Right. Like a lot of things like where with like those people that are into like very specific subgenres of music, sometimes, because I'm one of these types of people where I could be very picky about like what new things I choose to let into my life, or like what new places I choose to go, like, you know, and like, but it makes it really hard to start something new if you're just immediately like always pushing things away.
Right.
And that's something that I'm trying to be like so much better about now, just being more accepting and realizing like, oh, hey, like things have changed, and like, you know, everything's not going to be perfectly tailored to me, but like I have like an introspective kind of artist mentality, and I can understand that. Just like the average person, it's just like maybe a little bit old and like, you know, needs to like work or whatever like that. They probably think about going to Millvale, going to Mr. Smalls, like, oh yeah, I was there one time 7 years ago and it sucked parking. I ain't going to the show.
Yeah,
and that's like as simple as it is, but it's just like, it's wild. I was like thinking about the other thing too, talking about like boom bap and how that particular niche of hip hop has really kind of like faded off in some aspects while it's still very, very big. I know a lot of people online, mostly like people that I played shows with 10 years ago, that are still doing shit that I'm friends with, and they're still going around touring and stuff. It's like, shit, there are places and people that want this. But for whatever reason in Pittsburgh, I guess underground music in general has always been kind of tough here.
Yeah.
There's enough people that are still trying to do like punk and metal and stuff like that for it to at least be able to sustain itself. You know what I mean? Even just on average, it's like an average band has between 3 to 5 guys. So like if you have 5 bands, then you got, 25 people. If you have 5 MCs, you got 5 people.
Yeah.
And then maybe their DJ or something like that if you have one. So it's just like a smaller pool.
Yeah, and you only have to pay 5 people, not 25 people.
Yeah. I'm really interested too about like, if we talk about like rock and hip hop and like how trends cycle. We were talking about like, you see kids now wearing like the Nirvana shirts or whatever, right? And like with rock, there's always this cycle where it's like the nostalgia becomes like trendy again. Why doesn't that happen in hip hop?
I almost feel like there's been younger kids, let's say in their earlier 20s, that have seen me and they've said like, yo man, you're doing like what you're doing. It's like almost like a lot of the newer rappers are trying to go do that now. So I think that's what I've heard. And they're like, so keep doing what you're doing because like you're better at it than they are, because they just did the like trap type stuff, and then they're trying to rap more in those parameters.
Oh yeah.
And it's more difficult, I think, for them or whatever. But I don't know, man. I think I could see it coming back.
Yeah, I mean, it's like there's stuff that's been
I think
adjacent, right? Like if you like dip into like a Kendrick or something, that's not like too far off base. Right. It's definitely not trap.
I think there was just like the I don't like, I guess I don't know it's like this sing-songy rap with the auto-tune and drill and stuff. I think the reason why the boom bap stuff hasn't like came back around full force yet is because there's been so much more experimentation and new stuff that's been happening for each generation. And I'm not gonna shit on any of that style of hip hop, because I look at it as, if like I did kind of like my parents' music, but I was listening to shit that my parents were like, "What, this is garbage," and it's like, no, it's not. It's great. You don't understand. And I think that's important for every generation to have that thing.
Yeah, to have like, their thing.
You don't understand. This is our thing. So why the hell would they be making the type of hip hop that I like or that people think they're supposed to like or whatever? They're not supposed to.
Yeah,
but I could see that coming back around, but I'm not really sure, man. I think it's just because there's been so much. It's became the most popular genre, and then it branched out into every other genre, and it's still in the experimental phase.
Well, that's the thing that's really interesting, just about like art in general. Just like art is a human thing, unless you let AI get involved, which we don't got to go down that rabbit hole.
I don't want to.
But art is a human thing, and so by nature, humans evolve, humans change. So it's like, obviously like a particular genre of music can't be what it was like in the first decade of its existence. It can't be that forever. It's going to evolve. That's just like a natural thing.
Yeah,
but it's hard to see it happen though, because like we are of the age range where like we like grew up through this stuff happening, like growing up through like the 80s and the 90s and hearing this sound evolve. And then it evolves past where we are. Because another human thing that is really natural, I think, is to like your tastes kind of get settled in you. And then at a certain age, it's kind of like, well, this is what I like, and I don't like anything else. But the thing that you love is going to keep changing, even though your interest threshold has like stopped.
Yes.
And that's a difficult thing to reckon with once you start knocking on like the 4th decade of your life, and everything's continuing to change. And you're just like, fuck, now I feel old.
Yeah. It's more important for me to be like, to understand that and be like, all right, I might think this new shit is trash, but it's just because I'm fucking settled in my ways and I like what I like.
Yeah.
And it's not fair to everybody else to have to cater to that. You know what I mean?
Totally. And that's the thing, is like, if somebody is like feeling the same way about like whatever like trap artists in the same way that I felt about the shit that changed my life when I was like 10 years old, then it's like good. You like deserve to have that.
For sure.
But the interesting thing is like going back to you talking about performance in like rapping on tracks and lack of stage etiquette, and you know, that's like the norm now. So it's like that's like what they see. So people are just like, you know, art, another thing of art and performance is kind of like emulation and finding your own thing. But it's like people have been doing that rapping on track shit for the past fucking 10, 15 years. I mean, when I was, you know, playing a lot of shows, it was not uncommon, you know, to be like, hey, here's a, you know, the iPod, and you just push play and it's just the songs, you know?
Yeah.
So that's not new, but it's become the norm now.
That definitely has been going on for a while. I'm trying to think of the first time I ever heard somebody do that. But I know the first time I ever heard somebody do it was like at a live show myself. Obviously, if you watch fucking Soul Train, they do it on there. But I mean, like during a live performance, I can't remember who it was, but I remember just being like kind of devastated. Like, wait a minute, like, how is this different than lip syncing here?
I had like a kind of a there was a moment where, so I played a show with a show that I had no business playing on, probably like, you know, close to 15 years ago now at this point, with, you know, a very big artist from Pittsburgh who at the time was big, but not what they are now. And, you know, it was at a venue that, for lack of a better term, was very much a DIY venue, not a traditional concert venue. The show was packed. There's a lot of people there. And like, you know, at the end of the day, it was one of those things where like they gave the sound people like a CD to run, because CDs were still a thing. So just running a CD through iTunes off the laptop as the backtracks. And they never took the CD back at the end of the night. And then, you know, my buddy who was running the show was just like, it's just like his songs. Like, you know, like it was just like, go up on stage, mute the mics, and we're just going to do this. And it's like, is this like a lack of being willing to perform? Or is it like, oh, I'm in a DIY venue. This is packed. You know what I mean? There's like fucking 800 people here. It's like, I don't want this to sound bad. It needs to sound good. So is it better optically to people that aren't going to give a shit anyways for it to sound good versus it sound, you understand what I'm saying?
I've heard that argument. Yes. But my argument with that is I've performed at the worst fucking venues with the worst sound ever, and I've never done it, and I can still make it happen. Yeah. And then I've heard people say, well, have you ever performed in like a giant venue with like the blah blah blah, and people they're not going to hear you in the band. Yes, I actually have opened for some big artists, and it was full size venues with damn near sold out crowds, and I've still never done it, and I still was able to articulate everything, and you could hear it clear, and that's because I practice what I'm doing, and I learn how to project my voice on a microphone, and I listen to it back, and I try to improve from that. You know what I mean?
I didn't have fucking tracks in my shit. I played the same show, the same stage.
I know you would agree. I
sold more fucking shit that show than I had ever sold at a show before. People liked it. It was a good show.
I've heard people say that so much. Like, oh, the sound man sucked, so I had to do it. I run my own sound sometimes. I still don't do it. You know what I mean?
You know, I mean, there's a lot of like rock bands that are doing this shit now too. And it's like, I think just people were just like so afraid of coming off as imperfect, especially like bands on this high scale. And this is like a very miserable conversation to get into, but it's just like rock bands now. I mean, even I'm sure this isn't probably even just rock, just touring musicians in general, for the most part, like they're traveling merch tables. That's like what it is. You know what I mean? They're not getting paid to they're getting paid to be there, but how much of that is actually ending up in their pocket at the end of the day? You know what I mean? It's just like labels are putting these artists on the road to fucking sell merch. And if the show sounds bad, people aren't going to buy your shit. So it's just like, hey, make it look good, play the part, sing and dance, sell the fucking t-shirts. If you want to be out there on the road. And it's like miserable.
It's a shame
especially
that
with like, I don't mean to cut you off,
Yeah,
but like
right.
also too with like the modern production stuff and how much like touching up things has become the norm. There's so many people now that are on stage that can't actually even do the shit that they're doing in the studio because it's all fucking melodined and vocalined and auto-corrected and quantized and soulless.
Yep, I've seen it happen.
And
with
it's
like an indie rock band that you listen to them and it's this dreamy reverb, crazy, like sounds amazing. You see them live and it's like pots and pans and an acoustic guitar sound, and you're like, what the hell? And then they can't hit the notes they were hitting on that because it is all like kind of just post mix stuff, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you're just like
or post recording.
Yeah, it's like so much modern rock music is low key just electronic music.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's like, sure, maybe it was originally performed on organic things, but the amount of stuff that's happened in post, I mean, this is like, it's not human anymore. Doesn't mean it still doesn't sound good. Doesn't mean there's still not value in that piece of art as like a recording.
Right, for sure.
You know, I mean, there's a lot of shit that I listen to. I'm like, whoa, this sounds fucking crazy. But then you see it live and it's like, okay, well, I guess this just wasn't made for a live environment. I think that a lot of people, when they're writing music nowadays, they're just like, I just want to make something that sounds cool. And a lot of people aren't even thinking about like, can I perform this?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I spent a lot of time when I was like younger and getting into like the hip hop shit, like not thinking about like, oh, how like my syllable count and my cadence, and can I actually perform this live versus like, what can I do with like a bunch of punch-ins, you know? And like, you know, I didn't know how to write songs. And then you try to write some stuff and you start to play it. You're like, why can't I do this? It's because I'm writing too much. And then you start thinking about now, if I write something, I'm always thinking, can I actually do this live? Because if I can't, then I shouldn't be doing it. Unless it's something like really cool for like one small little part of a song where it's like, okay, don't get me wrong, I'm still an engineer, still like to do some production and throw some fancy things in there. But for the most part, you know, you gotta be able to like think. And I, again, playing in fucking metal bands, like so many guitar players that like, you know, try to do like a solo or something, and they're just trying to do it over and over again, trying to write above their ability. It's like, bro, just dial it back. Like, you're not fucking Yngwie Malmsteen. I know that might be hard for you to hear, but just dial it back.
Yeah.
And most of the time, people don't even need to hear all that shit. You're like communicating to them in a language that they don't even understand.
Right. Yeah, no, I will juice up, like, because I'm an engineer. I'm an engineer too. I will juice up my show tracks, and if there's, like, I write a lot. Sometimes I write a lot of bars that is all one breath. And while I'm recording, if I'm straining a little bit, I'll punch it in to give the listener the best version of the verse that I can do. But I'll punch it in, you know. And then when it comes down to me doing it live, if I'm running out of breath at the end and I just can't fit that whole thing in there might be a part where one word comes in, but I do it like fly, like it's one word and it echoes and a bunch of reverb comes out, you know what I mean? And that gives me, and then I can do the rest of shit, you know what I mean? And if there's anything underneath, it's just like little reverbs where the overdubs would be. Yeah. Like I'll leave the overdubs and turn them way down so you can't really hear them, but they're there to accentuate. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, definitely. And those that's not me, not rapping over any of my vocal takes. It's just if I know how to do that to a track from engineering, like why not just give the audience the best version of it that I can possibly do? And I mean nobody, the regular ear would never hear it. You know what I'm saying? But it's just for accentuations. Yeah, I mean, I can take all that shit off, rap right over the instrumental, and just same shit, you know. And if I need to take a breath in my head, I'll just think, what can I take out the word the, or can I take out the word like and I'll just, you know, do a live version of it, which that's what, I'm sorry, like it sounds like a lot of work, but that's what it takes to perform live, to rap live. You gotta practice your shit, and I think that's what it comes down to. It's just the laziness it's almost like cooler to be lazy about shit
to some degree.
Just because everybody wants to just like, yo, I just do this. It's easy. I don't have to practice. Like, I don't have a job. I get money from some invisible source. Like, that's like, it's all glorified to do nothing now and get things from it. Like, I just perform over my I don't care. It's like, you know, I don't know. I feel like that attitude is more acceptable than being like hardworking, practicing, practicing your takes, practicing your set, make sure you know all your words, and then like really going out there. I mean, I do sprint. I like sprint a couple days before a big performance. Everybody always laughs. Like I go down to the bike trail at the park and I fucking do sprints just to keep my lungs up. You know what I mean? So I hate running, but that's because that shit for me, it's such a big difference. Like, cause I when you listen to my shit, it's not monotone, but it's chill sometimes. I have some inflections. When I perform live, I'm essentially yelling my words a lot of times. You know what I mean? So it's like I got to have the breath there.
Definitely. I think that the thing with like the laziness is a lot of it, and this is going to sound, I'm going to be a little spicy, I suppose, but the one issue I find, anybody deserves to make art. Everybody deserves, again, as long as they're not being like socially fucking weird, everybody has a platform to put their art out there. Deserves that platform. But, when I started like making music, it wasn't easy to make music. You had to put in some work. And now you don't really have to. Like, if we wanted to, we could fucking make some beats, record our vocals, take a promo, and upload it for worldwide distribution from this fucking phone in less than an hour.
Right, yeah.
If we really wanted to. So it's like everybody has access to this technology. And again, everybody deserves it. But there's a lot of people that, in my spicy opinion, don't deserve it.
I agree.
And, what you get is a lot of that laziness. And I think why that laziness in like a performance standpoint or even a production standpoint, why a lot of this stuff is becoming cool is because like people don't want to put in the work, because then that means they actually have to learn how to do shit.
Yeah.
And people are afraid of doing that. So it's like, well, let's just make laziness the trend. Mm-hmm. I'll make this my aesthetic.
Right.
And then that aesthetic becomes the norm.
Mm-hmm.
I find that like, I can't tell you how many times that like I've like talked to people about like what I do when I'm playing shows, where I've like done stuff where like, I like time sync my tracks with like a projector and have like cool visual stuff and different cues and like, little props and stuff. Like really like I'm a fucking show person. I grew up, I like live music. I like the show. You should do a performance. And people were just like, you don't like, why are you doing all that? Like, it's too much. It's like, why wouldn't I do all this? Like, do you really just want to like see me just fucking stand there and like talk at you? I'm like, trying to do a show.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think it's a shame that there's a whole generation out there that have only really seen the version that we're talking about live, and that's like their standard.
Yeah.
They don't like even understand what a real performance would be like, quote unquote real performance. I'm not trying to be too much of an old man talking about, I don't know, talking about how kids are lazy nowadays. But I mean, all right, let's say we take away all the sample packs, we take away everything you can download, we take away your DAW, and you're left with a piece of hardware and vinyl records to sample. And or you could maybe sample some VHS tapes. Like, how many people do you think are going to be hip hop producers after that?
Very few.
Because you got to go out there and put in the fucking work.
Oh yeah.
Which, and then, which I like. That's why I like, people always ask me, yo, you got any sample packs for sale or drum packs, or what drum packs do you use? I'm like, I'm not, please, everybody use drum. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm just saying, for me, I have to have something that I got myself for me to use it. Like, I mean, I don't want sounds that somebody else dug for and found themselves, and they heard the sound like, oh, this would be dope. I don't want somebody else's work to be the start of my work. You know what I mean? I go and I find a drum break on a record, and I'm like, well, that's the thing. Now I have a bond with it, and now I'm like, yo, like I could do this justice by doing this in a beat, and like I'm going to fucking Goodwills and record stores and finding records, because now it's hard. You can't sample anything because you can Shazam it and the algorithm picks it up. So I'm out trying to find the most obscure fucking weird, maybe overseas records or whatever that is not out there, and like And that's part of like the whole making a beat process for me.
That was the thing that I was going to say is I think that I imagine for you, because this is similar to me too, where it's like, you know, the type of music that I do isn't necessarily super sample heavy, but I still like to dig through and try to incorporate stuff when I can. And the thing that I love about it is it gives me an excuse to keep trying to find new things. You know what I mean? Like low key, I could be like, oh, like I'm just trying to find like some weird fucking sound effect sample for an intro on this song. So that's me being productive. But low key, it's just an excuse for me to finally sit down and dig through all these fucking records that I bought like months ago. You know, it's like still like that part of the journey where, you know, you're still like a consumer of art, not just a creator. And I think there are a lot of people in music now that like the idea of being a musician, but don't actually listen to music or actually listen to, they're not like actively a part of the culture that they're trying to contribute to. So they're just trying to make stuff and just like emulate off of the surface instead of like really digging into the trenches because they just don't care. They're not interested in the history. They're just interested in their future, not even the future of the culture as a whole, like just what's in it for me.
Yeah. So if I'm looking for like a super obscure Swedish prog rock record that like, you know, it's like a legend of it. There's like, it's like this legendary record that's, or an artist that you know is going to be really interesting and cool. Let's like YouTube wasn't out yet and people weren't downloading everything yet. So I'm like learning, I'm like, damn, I got to find this shit. Like, you know, like then you start to be curious about the artists that you're looking for. And then you actually start to like them as a group. And then you finally get the record and you're like, oh my God, I got it. I'm fucking sampling this. And like, then you listen to the whole thing and you're like, wow, this is a great piece of music. I got to do this shit justice when I sample it. I don't want to just do some easy shit, you know, so you're going to be more creative to be even respectful of what you sampled. But I've been to some people's studios and they just, it's time to make a beat. They open up YouTube, they search like weird German prog rock, and something comes up. Oh, that first 10 seconds sounds cool. Let me download that, put it in here, put it in my DAW. Let's put some drums behind it. There's the beat. Essentially, that you don't care about the artist at all, like you were saying. Like that whole part is lost there.
But now, I mean, like, you know, even that, there's definitely levels to it. I would still say, like, even though that's definitely that's like a very less romantic way to go about the process. At least that's still better than like, oh, let me log into my Splice account, you know, and then just like pull loops off of Splice to use, you know. At least it's still like, well, I at least have some sort of awareness of other music in history to maybe look up something. I might not have the fucking record. I might not have a turntable or anything like that. But it's like, hey, you know, it's like, if you're somebody that's like a young producer that doesn't have all of this shit, but you do have a genuine interest in it, I mean, you got to start somewhere, for sure. You know, so absolutely. It's like there's like a balance to that. I mean, I remember fucking like, and like gotta say, I'm not knocking anybody that does that. Definitely, it's just for me, there's something lost there. I don't know if I would really be. I don't know if I ever would have started making beats if it was today's climate. It's just not. The way that works just doesn't, there's nothing appealing to me in that regards. But that's not, I'm not never knocking anybody for doing that. You know, well, definitely. I mean? It makes total sense. Like if you're younger and this is what's available, of course, that's, you know, that's what you're going to use. And then you are being more creative by searching weird stuff. And that is a lot better than just downloading a pack. Yeah. Loading it into your MIDI thing and there's your beat. Yeah. I mean, like, you know, like I started making all my beats like on the fucking Sony PlayStation MTV music generator when I was in 8th grade, which was basically like Fruity Loops on a PlayStation. You know, it was like the same exact shit. And then I was like over at my boy's house and he had a fucking Korg ES1 Electribe. And I was like, oh, it was like, this is like an actual thing that like does the thing that I've been doing in there, but it's like an actual thing. And then I remember like saving up 2 paychecks from Taco Bell and buying one, you know, and like that was like where I got started. So then like from there, like for me, the only thing I was ever using the computer for was like a DAW to just record everything. And then it was like probably like close to 10 years before I even ended up getting into like native instruments and doing some of that like programming stuff. And that was mostly just because by that point, I was in a situation where I was like living in living situations where I couldn't have like all my shit set up all the time, and I had like a decent laptop, and I would like, oh, if I do this, I didn't have a fucking car. I was like, I could like work on shit on the bus. I had like an hour ride to and from work. So then I started getting into like doing stuff digitally, but then I just got like too into it, and then all my gear started collecting dust. But then over time, I ended up finding a way to kind of marry both of them in a way that feels good to me, where I feel like I'm still doing like all the analog shit justice, but still able to use like the digital stuff as like an idea pad, like a sketchbook in a lot of ways. Helps keep me productive because, you know, nowadays, like with work and stuff like that, like I'm just on the road a lot. And it's like, I still want to be able to create.
Right. All that stuff's great,
you
too.
know?
I mean, that's essentially, you know, it was always beat machines and shit, and it's just more compact. I got koala beats on my phone. I make beats on that fucker all the time, man. It's great. I could just fucking sample a car beep going by and then just like chop that up, and then later on I'll come home and put some drums on it. That shit's fun, man. You know, that's dope.
Yeah, I think it's just important to just like be creative. And again, like you don't need a lot, you know, like you really don't. I fucking had people like, you know, like all the time, like people will ask me about like getting into music production or recording a podcast. And like, you know, like nowadays I've been doing this shit for so fucking long, and I don't like smoke cigarettes or have kids. So I've had enough income to buy like more cameras than necessary and shit like that. Right. But it's like, you don't need all this stuff. I mean, when you first came on my podcast all those years ago, it was like in a tiny fucking bedroom in a house that I lived in with 3 other fucking people. And I probably had like 1 or maybe 2 microphones on like a desk that I set up with some folding chairs in my bedroom. Yeah. You know, and it's like, that's what I had. And I did it. I didn't even have any cameras then.
All right.
And you just do it and you just build, you know, that's the thing. It's just like, so however you got to start. But I think it's like, if you do find like passion in what you're doing, I think you owe it to yourself and to the craft of whatever that medium is to actually get in and eventually try to find a way to do it right, to do it more justice. Like I couldn't imagine like still like, you know, making music on the Sony PlayStation, or, you know, only doing something digital, or only recording a podcast with 1 microphone, you know, because like I love this shit too much, which is like why I like invest into it. So I think that's why, like, I think ultimately the point I'm trying to make is that's what's crazy about seeing people that are like lazy about stuff. So it's like, how can you genuinely like be passionate about what you're doing and only put in this much effort? That blows my mind. Like, if you actually give a shit, how can this just be it for you? How is this the maximum effort that you're willing to give? And like, why am I supposed to fucking care about this if you don't care about this?
Right.
But maybe we're just old.
That's probably part of it, you know. Whatever, man. I'm cool with it. Like I said, it's all good. Whatever anybody wants to do to express themselves through this art form, you know, I'm all for it. You know, just for me, I'm fulfilled with a little more analog type of stuff. That's just my niche, and I feel like that's the best one. You know what I mean? But that doesn't mean that, you know, I can make beats on Koala on my phone and nobody would know.
Yeah.
You know, and I do sometimes. You know, and I hope everybody else does too. Shit's fun. Why not use it if it's there? You know what I mean?
You know, you deserve to have those creative outlets. I think it's just finding the healthy balance of doing that. And I guess also at the end of the day, whatever the fuck makes you happy.
Right. And if
the world's crazy, finding joy is complicated. So if you find something that gives you some peace, go for it.
Right. And if there's a kid out there that would otherwise be getting into trouble or drugs, and he wants to download sample packs and make beats on whatever computer, then that's great. You know what I mean? And that's what really it's all about is kids having something positive to do.
Definitely.
With the music. That's really what it's about. So as long as, like you were saying before, as long as people aren't doing nefarious things towards society with their art, it's all good.
Yeah.
You know, but how many people want to come out to a venue and see a kid that made beats with sample packs on their computer perform.
Yeah, well,
hopefully they get better. But you know what I mean? Everybody's doing that, so it's like, why are we going out to a venue to watch somebody do it if like everybody's already doing it?
Another interesting question, and this segues really good into kind of the next talking point of this conversation. So a lot has changed in the past, decade or so since you were last on the show. It wasn't exactly 10 years, but it was probably like at least 8 or 9 years, probably.
It might have been 10,
so a lot has changed in society, and we're talking a lot about like, the world of production in analog versus digital, and how that works. And we're talking about like artists and performing and laziness and things like that. But a lot of modern artists don't even necessarily perform at all anymore because they don't have to, because we no longer really live in a world where the analog world is needed, because the digital world is kind of where everybody needs to live, or where there's a lot of success to be found. And I think that's why a lot more people want to make music now, especially in like the hip hop realm, but it's not exclusive to that by any means. It's because like, hey, I can blow up on TikTok, I can blow up on Instagram. And things are a lot different. The digital world is a lot different. It's changed so much since the last time we talked. And I'm curious how you, as a fellow dinosaur, because we're both probably about the same age and are dealing with probably similar struggles when it comes to being online and branding and trying to just keep up with letting people know that I exist in this world. How's it been for Moemaw Naedon navigating the troubled waters of social media?
I could definitely do a lot better with it, but I utilize it, and it is great. But my creative process, or the people's art who I was a fan of's creative process, was never like a 15-second catchy piece of audio that is going to put you on the map. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's like, I guess I'm not very good at that because I don't really want to be. You know what I mean? But none of my shit's ever got like picked up on TikTok, and an influencer was never doing like a dance to it. You know what I mean? If that happened, I'd probably be doing all right. But I don't really push to do that. Maybe I should. But it's been working out good, man. I've got people that order my shit from other countries, and they've discovered me only through Instagram. And when I come out with some merch or a new record or whatever, like the majority of my sales come from Instagram direct message, and people find out about me because people will tag me and stuff, and then you know how it works. But, so it's worked out. Like I said, I could definitely do a lot better. But I still put out videos. I try to put out reels and shit like that. And it's all right. It's kind of fun,
Yeah. That seems like the most healthy and balanced take that one could possibly have regarding this. Because it exists. It's a tool like anything else. I don't want to be one of those people that romanticizes like, oh, you got to get the physical flyers out on the polls, or, all the online shit's bullshit. Because there's it's all good.
Right. I use it both. And when I do
it's all good.
Right. When I have a release show, I still do physical flyers, and I put them up in places where I think they're, in Oakland where the colleges are at and shit. But I try to you got to do both, but now, there's a lot of you got to boost your shit. You got to pay a little bit of money, which everybody's like, oh, fuck that. But it's like, really, that's what it's always been. If you wanted to promote before, you had to buy ad space in the city paper. They would put an article in there for free, but you could, if you want to stand out, you can buy ad space. Then you got to pay to print all your flyers, which that shit adds up. You know what I mean? You get stickers, you put it up, that's all stuff you had to purchase to promote. So it's just kind of the same shit. And I'm using somebody else's platform. I can't expect it to always be completely free. So that the algorithm definitely works against you now if you don't throw them a little bit of money every once in a while. But that helps that, you know what I mean? That works. If you're really trying to promote something, put something towards it. But then there's also part of me that I would love the internet to just crash, and let's see how many motherfuckers are willing to print flyers and go out there and put it all over poles and fucking do DIY tours, you know what I mean, and try to get booked in the venues by actually going in and talking to the people that work there and pitching yourself person to person. And we did that at the tail end of where that era was over, like with Fortified Phonetics, when we were in Surface Level Records throwing a lot. Internet was out back then, social media was out, but we were doing a lot of hand-to-hand flyering back then and shit, and like, you know, that's what it was. You had to do it. And I'd like to see how many people would still be out there doing shit if that's the only way you could do it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I would be very curious to see that as well. It's just, I feel like there's something that just feels so disposable anymore when it comes to like just like people putting their stuff out there and like in like booking shows where it's just like like, you know, I don't know, I just like there's like a really like a lack of curation from like a promoter side, which is like, this is probably a completely different conversation to get into, but like talking about like needing to like go out to like venues and be like, hey, this is what we do, here's like a fucking demo tape, like, you know what I mean? I remember like back in the day, like taking the bus to Garfield Artworks and sliding a fucking CD through the slot for Manny, like, you know, waiting for a phone call for him to book me. And it's funny because he still operates pretty much the same fucking way, God bless him. But like, you know, like it's not like that anymore. Now it's just like, you know, like, oh, let me send a DM, and then like, you know, if I have like enough followers or if I have enough streams on Spotify, I might get a show. You know, I feel like it's very rare now that somebody's actually going to be like, oh, like I listened to your stuff and it sounded cool, so I want to put you on this show. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like that happened. Like the amount of times where somebody's been like, oh, like I went on Bandcamp and I looked for like, you know, this type of music, saw that you were from Pittsburgh and I want to put you on a show. Like this happened maybe like 2 times out of all the shows that I've played, you know?
Right. It happens occasionally for me.
And like, I think it might happen more with like, it would make sense for that to happen in the realm of like the specific like boom bap adjacent hip hop thing, because like, how are you going to find it? So like having the internet to use that stuff is cool. But then that goes back to the conversation of like not having a good venue that's like a hub of that community in the city, you know, because most of these people that are like running clubs and stuff like that now, it's just like they're more concerned about their fucking liquor license and their staffing and all this shit. And they're like, whatever, we just need artists that are going to bring people.
Yeah.
And the only thing the only thing that they fucking have time to do is just see how many fucking followers somebody has online. But that doesn't mean anything.
Right.
It doesn't mean fucking anything.
A lot of times them shits are fake, you know?
Oh yeah. A lot of it's very fabricated. It just doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
So it creates like creates a bad lull, because then you'll get situations where, say there's a show at Mr. Smalls and say there's a big artist coming through and they want to get a local opener. And instead of whoever's promoting that show taking the time to find somebody that's actually a good fit for that artist, they just put out an email to everybody on their fucking list looking for openers. And then whatever idiot agrees to do it, it was like, oh, hey, like, yeah, sure, I could sell the 50 fucking tickets or whatever. You know what I mean? I'll sell them, you know, I'll sell 10 to my family and pay for the other 40, you know, just so I can get on this stage.
Yeah. Which that happens all the time. And then the audience is sitting there like,
and then the shit,
what is this?
Yeah.
Why is this the opener?
Oh, this is and like, not only that, but it's like, oh, this is a local guy. Then and they don't understand how this works. So now that person is a representation of the local community as a whole.
Yes.
And I don't think that promoters put enough stock in what they're actually doing when they just put people up on a stage without curation. Like, again, everybody has the right to play music, but there are stages for people like that to figure it out. That's why places like fucking Roboto exist. Like, cut your teeth, get your shit. But like, as far as like a big platform stage, like I feel like you should work to a certain point to be able to get there to open up for somebody, because I think it's really important for venue owners to not only just cover their fucking asses and bring in people from out of town, but help curate and showcase the best of the best for local music, because that's only going to benefit them more, because a lot of these fucking venues can only be open on those nights when they have big shows. But if they actually take the time to curate the local talent, they could do local shows on their fucking dead nights and have more people in the building more regularly if they actually try to showcase some of the talent that deserves it.
They're more worried about getting the money to pay the artist than it doesn't matter what happens after that.
It's all temporary.
Which that is like...
And I get it.
I think that is one of the... To go back to the first thing that you asked me, what happened to the scene, I can think of like 30 shows I've been to where it's like the promoters book themselves and shit, and like they're not even a good fit to open up, and like everybody's just like, man, these Pittsburgh rappers suck, because it's like it's just people buying their way onto the stage, and then the crowd and the scene is the victims of it. You know what I mean? And I think that has a lot to do with it. Like that's been like all those acts have been showcased in front of like major touring acts, and people just have a disrespect for the local scene because of that. I definitely think that has a lot to do with it. Yeah, for sure.
And I mean, like I could speak on that honestly, just from the personal experience of like, you know, that the show that I was talking about before with the artist that played to the tracks. I did not deserve to be on that show. The only reason I was on that show is because I knew the promoter, and he was like, do you want to play this? And, you know, I was fucking like 20. I'm not going to be like, well, no, because I don't think I'm the right representation of the community. Like, I didn't have that mindset yet. I was just young and hungry to play shows. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll play it. You know, but like in hindsight now, it's like, damn, there's probably a lot of other people that should have played that show. And like nowadays, like people will hit me up for shows. And it's like, hey, do you want to open up for so-and-so? Like the most recent one was like Shaggy 2 Dope, which is like, okay, it's not really my scene at all, but I probably could play that show.
I would do that in a second,
you know, and I could probably do it. You know, I'd probably play that show. Everybody there's going to be super cool.
You get a Fago thrown at you.
Yeah. And like, you know, like, cause like I have no disrespect towards like that community or those artists or anything like that. But I was just like, no, because there's probably a good handful of other people that actually want to be a part of that community that deserve to have that spot, not me.
That was nice of you, man.
Find somebody else.
I would have took it. I would love to have that fan base, because that fan base is once they're on your side, man, you're good as far as like getting people to buy your merch and stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is, I mean, like this was like in the past year, and I don't really do like solo hip hop shit like that anymore. Like I put out a record last year that I made just kind of like, it was like a bunch of random shit that I had just kind of been working on. And like, but even that is like, it's like hip hop adjacent, but I wouldn't really call it a hip hop record. It's more of like a weird electronic record that has like groove instead of all 4/4 beats, you know what I mean? And, you know, but like, I don't even have like the right set to play this show if I wanted to, unless I'm like pulling out music that's like a decade old. Right. You know, I think in general, a big part of the reason why like I like stopped even like making like hip hop music was just because like I kind of just like, well, I didn't know what happened to the community, and just as a whole, I kind of just like fell out of love with what was happening in it, and I was just interested in doing other shit, and that's all it was, you know. And I was just like, you know, I don't feel like, I feel like an imposter trying to like keep doing this shit, and I feel like it was like the community doesn't deserve that. Like, why would I be taking stage time from other people? There's already not enough people in this scene, but also maybe that's part of the problem. Maybe we should start spitting some bars again so there could be more artists to play more shows.
Yeah, man. It's the $1 million mystery. I don't know. Yeah.
I think you just gotta like, I think taking those opportunities and like alternative venues and just being happy to play shows for whoever and having people that are open up to things, like that's really all we can do in this city, because that's much better than just like waiting for something to happen. Like nobody's gonna fucking snap their fingers and open up a hip hop club in Pittsburgh. Right. It ain't gonna happen.
Right.
You know, because there's also all of the like horrible connotations that come with like I remember when I was working at Get Hip and we started doing shows there, and like the insurance stuff, because we were doing like rock shows, the insurance was, they were gonna want to charge you more money because of it being like a performance space and like a high risk thing. I can't even fucking imagine being like, oh, like, hey, we're opening up a venue and we want to do hip hop shows because of the fucking negative social connotations that come with that.
Right.
And, you know, people that run insurance companies, I mean, they're not trying to cut anybody a deal. It's a business. They want to make as much fucking money as they can off of you.
Oh, yeah.
So the second that you're like, oh, hip hop, they're like, oh, ding, ding, ding. Of course, please take our business, but it's going to cost you a little bit more. You want to be careful. You never know what could happen at your show.
Yeah.
And that's like a very like ugly, sad truth of like why I don't think we have many hip hop clubs.
Yeah. True. There has been some good things that happened community wise that I don't want to like shadow with all the negative stuff about the scene. But
definitely, I mean, please do.
Yeah. So the homie No Casino who makes beats.
Tanner,
and DJ, yeah. He when he moved into town, he saw all the, he heard about all the producers and the MCs and stuff. Not a ton of them, there's a few, and he kind of was just like, I want to do a thing called Pittsburgh Beat Night, where it's like, everybody brings out their beat machines and we play beats for the crowd, and like rappers want to show up, they can show up too. And the first couple he did, and everything after that, it was really like something that we were missing. It was like all of us together again, and it was dope.
That's
like,
cool.
I just wish that it wasn't like, and it sucked because I remember he's like, it was dope. We were all like, yo, thanks, man. You really brought us together. Like we're all so jaded and like sick of like trying to fucking do this and people not coming out. Like, I guess that's what it took, was for somebody else to come in and bring us together and really keep that energy going again, and the camaraderie and the excitement. And I had to tell him, like, we were like, yo, like, he's like, I want to do a monthly. I was like, you can't do that here. You know what I mean? Because like it starts to fizzle out. You know what I mean? It's got to be like every 3 months or something. Because you've done probably monthly shows back in the day. We used to do ones at the Smiling Moose. Blacklisted had a residency there. And it'd be packed for a little bit, and then slowly, you know what I mean, nobody's coming out.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's just tricky with this town. You can't do too much all the time. You can't do the same thing like every time and expect that it's just going to keep generating steam. You know what I mean?
I gotta shout out No Casino real quick, because the first time I met him, my boy Wyatt was just like, oh yeah, this is my friend Brian. Like, he's into like making music and stuff like that. And like the second sentence that he ever said to me was just like, oh, you make beats? I do this beat night. He was already like trying to like get me out. Like I had just fucking met him, and it's like cool. It's just like that energy is awesome. You need people that are willing and able to do stuff like that. That just want to like help like curate the culture of things. And I was like, damn, it's been a while since I've like made anything like that. But hey, I would love to be a part of it. But again, it's just like, I'm just gonna come down and spin a bunch of fucking EBM tracks I've been working on and be like, whatever, fuck it.
Yeah, he's been DJing a lot. I don't know, maybe he'll do another Pittsburgh Beat Night, huh? But yeah, shout out to him for that. And that was like, stuff like that still happens every once in a while, and it's dope,
No doubt.
Yeah.
So outside of, all of the hubbub about Pittsburgh and our lovely city that we live in, what do you got cooking on the horizon?
I'm working with C. Scott on some stuff right now. Me and him always do shit together, but I got some stuff I did with him, working on that. And I've been making beats and trying to find, trying to get another solo produced album that I do all the beats. And because I always end up working with producers, that's just because it's easy for me to like get beats from people and listen to them, and then like the words I feel the vibe of the beat and the words start coming. When it's my own shit, as you know, like
you start overworking.
I'm like, even if I stepped away from the beat and I'm like, all right, here's this one, I I press play and I'm like about to try to think of some lyrics or whatever direction I want to go to. I'm like, yo, damn, that snare does sound kind of good there. Or like, damn, I should fix those hi-hats or something. Or like, or you start to remember like the process of making the beat, and it kind of like fucks up the writing process. It's like I have to totally remove myself from that beat in order to try to like catch the original groove that I was feeling when I made the beat. So that's why that you don't get a lot of like self-produced like full lengths from myself, because it's I can work a lot, I can write a lot faster to other people's shit, because I'm just like, I get it from them, like, oh, that's that vibe, I know what I want to do, let's do it. I'm always analyzing my shit. So but I do have like I got probably like an EP's worth started, as far as like having like one verse and a hook here, maybe space for a feature, and just kind of like loosely putting that together. And I got some stuff that I have a project that is just that's sitting there on hold due to legalities. Like, it's because somebody that I'm working with on it is bound by a contract, and just waiting for that to be up. And when it's been a long time since we completed that, but like when I can put that shit out, that's going to be some shit. You know what I mean? Yeah. But yeah, just working on solo produced stuff right now, and there'll be some loose singles that I drop with other producers, maybe video here and there.
Yeah,
you know,
so just cruising,
just cooking away, man.
Just cooking away,
just fucking chipping away.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Somehow,
it's because you love it,
I guess. Yeah,
you know, that's it.
I guess is when I do it, I'm like, it's just fulfilling. Once I hit that pocket, and I'm like, I'm working on a verse and it starts to all come together, I'm like, oh shit, and I get up and start walking around, and I'm like, you know, there's that right there is why I do it, because it's like not too much other stuff that really makes me, you know, gets me. I have to work to get to that point, you know what I mean? But there's not too much that more at this point that's that fulfilling. I mean, there is, but I still get that from this. So
I get it.
Why not keep riding with it? People still give me positive encouragement to keep doing it, and without that, I wouldn't do it. That honestly, like if I didn't have people still buying my stuff and still listening to it and telling me in person that, like, you know, I got a feeling that you know it's going to be worth it if you keep going, I probably wouldn't still do it. But I do get encouragement from people, and thank you.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, it's cool. You've always been somebody that, you know, I have had a ton of respect for. Thanks, that I've looked up to in the community. It's like a lot of fun, because even though, like, you know, I'm not a part of like the hip hop community, really, like I'm a part of the musician community.
Yeah.
Engineer, producer, just like good person community.
Yeah,
and
man.
like, you know, it's always been great seeing your stuff. I love when I'm out of town and I'm digging and I come across some of your stuff. Nice. I see it in stores. I see you putting in the work to get things out there. Yeah. And it's fun. I'm always like, oh shit,
hell,
you know.
Yeah.
I'll start fucking sending pictures to you now.
Yeah, your fucking number. Yeah, man. I'll repost anything.
Yeah, you know,
to me too. Yeah.
Yes, but I mean, it's cool. You know, it's like the work doesn't go unnoticed.
Thank you, bro.
But I know how fucking hard it is to like keep doing this shit. Sometimes it's like real easy to feel like you're just like talking to yourself, basically.
Yeah. Yes. And that's where that is where like the digital realm of things come in, like fuck Spotify, you know what I mean? Like, but it is nice to be able to use it to promote your stuff.
Yeah.
To you know, if you can get it on some playlist, as corny as that fucking sound, it is cool for that to work its magic, and people in other countries will DM you or something like, hey bro, found your music on da 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 da. And it's like, cool. That wouldn't exist if it wasn't for that shit.
Yeah.
So it is cool to see that, you know, the streams working through those platforms and everything.
Yeah, I think that it's really important to remember that like the online world and the real world are different things for artists that operate at our level, you know. And I think it's so easy for people to put it all into one thing, but I don't think that's a healthy way to like navigate art. You know, the online shit's cool because you never know what's going to happen. Put it out there, give it some boosts, throw fucking Zuckerberg a little bit of dough to get some people out to shows. That's cool, but like the real world, you got to like also pay attention to that too. You know, I think so many people get caught up in just like putting everything into online and expecting to get results in the real world from it. But I think you also still have to engage with the real world, at least at this level. I think there's a certain threshold online that if you pass a certain number of genuine organic followers, it'll actually start to have real world consequences. But at this point, at least for me, I ain't there yet.
Yeah.
But you don't get to that point unless you actually put stuff into the online stuff too. So it's like, okay, well, you want to make time to do this because maybe you can get to a point where you pass a threshold where it actually starts to affect the real world. But I don't want to get so caught up and only do an online stuff that I neglect the real world. And then it's like, okay, well, now I might have, you know, a bunch of listeners on Spotify, but I can't get any of them to come to a show because I can only get shows in Pittsburgh. And it's like everything's separated. So it's like, I'm only one fucking person trying to do all this.
Yeah.
You ever have a manager? You ever think about that?
No, I've thought about it. I've had somebody help me with promo just because they wanted to see if they could do music management. You know what I mean? And happens to be one of my friends. So, and they still will get me opportunities, even though we're not like on that level. But it's just like they got connects in hip hop, and
that's cool.
I've gotten a couple features with them just talking to like you know, I've worked with some people that are legendary to me. You know what I mean? And this person has like passed my music on to them and be like, yo, what do you think about this dude? Shit, would you ever want to do a track with them? And they'd be like, yeah, shit's dope. And
that's awesome.
He'll hit me up and be like, yo, so and so would be cool working with you. And I was like, fucking right, man. Thank you. You know, that's the closest thing I ever had to a manager was you know, just certain people looking out here and there. But I would not be opposed to it.
Yeah.
I'm just not. It's just I don't know how that whole thing works. Just like, to be completely honest,
it's like finding the right person, right? I think that's the hard thing. Is like there's a difference between like finding. It's like at this level, you got to find somebody that actually gives a fuck about what we're doing. Because again, we're not at that threshold yet where like we're like an easy paycheck for them. You know?
Yeah, right. Exactly. You know? Like, so what's it going to benefit them?
It's like you need to actually find somebody that believes in you enough to work that with you, so you can get to a point where now we're both winning.
Right. And then a lot
of people don't want to put in that work to actually help. They just want like somebody that's already blowing up, and then they'll knock on your door.
Yeah, which makes sense because they're trying to support themselves.
I get it. Yeah.
And I'm managing myself pretty much, which is crazy because I, you know, manage my own life, let alone myself, music. But no, it's all right. But I mean, other features I've like, you know, the internet is out there, and you can find somebody's email address if you really want, even if it's not right on their social media. If you do enough digging, you can figure out how to get in contact with them. And that's how I've got some of my other features. I've just fucking dug around and be like, I think this is their actual email, and hit them up like, yo, what do you think about this? Cool, I'll do it. Here's the price. I'm like, all right, well, that was, you know, okay. Let me see what happens here. You know, and that's worked out. So yeah,
fuck yeah.
It would be nice to have I think a tour type of manager, somebody, because that's fucking exhausting for me. I'm not like a email entering paragraphs and trying to pitch myself type of person. That's probably my weakest point is the self pitch. You know, so it helps to have somebody else acting for you on that. Be like, hey, check out this dude. I think he'd be good here because of this and this and how much. You know, it's just like it's a lot of work. You know. But that would be cool to have somebody that would help me along with that maybe, but I could do it myself too. But you know,
it's hard because you don't want to. There's sometimes like there's some stuff that you shouldn't know about because it fucks with your perception of it as a whole. Like if you really know like how like the McNuggets are made, right? It like fucks with your perception on like, should I be eating this? You start like fucking booking touring and like, you know, doing all that stuff yourself and like operating as like not an artist because you have to think as like a business person, and it starts to like color everything in this really ugly way. You know, it's almost like better just like I would rather have somebody else that can handle all that ugliness so I could at least still live in some sort of a delusion of like this being like fun. 'Cause it is fun, but it's also not
right
once you pass a certain threshold.
that stuff is not fun to me.
No.
I don't know. There's some weirdos out there that like doing that too. Like they like sending emails and pitching themselves and shit. I wish I'd like that shit. I fucking hate doing that, man. You know what I mean? Like, no, I just want to make music and I'll perform, but like, yeah, that all the tedious begging people type of shit is just, that's not for me, man. Never has been.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat.
Yeah.
I sometimes wonder if I was born like a decade later when like social media was more of a normal thing, if I would have been any different, or if this is just the way that I am.
You may have been. I think about that too. Like, I might be operating different as an artist if I was born with a cell phone in my hand, you know?
Yeah. Who's to say? Well, hey, we're both here. We're doing it.
Yeah.
And you know, before we wrap it up, we've been almost going for 90 minutes.
Wow.
We're fucking cooking over here.
Yeah.
Anything you want to let the good people of the internet know?
Let's give you this. This is
hey.
This is the last thing I came out with. There's a couple stickers in there too. I would bring you vinyl, but I sold out all my vinyl.
Oh, well, congrats.
But I do have that's being pressed on vinyl. That is that's the latest thing I've done with C. Scott. If you see the homage in the cover, then you'll understand what that's about.
Mm-hmm.
It's like 20, it's 30 tracks, all instrumentals, all super dusty sample heavy shit. And these CDs, actually handmade these. The CD part was a stamp and then a spray paint stencil.
Oh, cool.
So each CD is like is one of a kind.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But by the time this comes out, Introducing, which is this album, will be out on vinyl, be double LP, and the shit sounds fucking nice. It'll be out by the time this drops. I think. When's this gonna drop?
I don't know the date off the top of my head. But in the next month.
In the next month?
Yeah, yes. It'll probably be at least 4 weeks.
Okay. Well, then the vinyl should be out by then. If it's not, then we just haven't been able to find somebody to. We haven't been able to find a place to do the vinyl release party at.
Which goes back to our conversation from the very beginning.
Because the vinyl is in my house. But I'm not. I can't help myself. But I can't. I'm not. It's not going anywhere until we have that fucking release show ready.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, fuck, man. Thank you for coming by. It was good catching up.
Thanks for
good
having
talking
me.
And all that shit. Thank you for the CD. I'll keep an eye out for the release party whenever that may be.
Hell yeah.
And hopefully I will be there.
All right, bro.
Hell yeah. Well, with all of that being said, I guess that's been our episode. One more time, Moemaw Naedon, thank you for being here. Insert digital applause. I'll be back again next week with another episode. Same time, same place, same channel. You know the drill. My name is Brian Sykes Howe. Start the Beat is the podcast. 2024 is the year. And until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of the people around you, and peace. We did it. That was a podcast.
Nice.